Greetings, Mark Grang here, publisher of the Conway Daily Sun, and today my guest is Christian Urrutia. Christian, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here with you today,
Good.
Mark.
Christian, you are running as a Democrat in the 1st District Congressional race.
Correct.
And so why don't we start off with a little background?
Sure.
Who are you?
Yeah, so look, I'm a New Hampshire native. I grew up, don't hold it against me, I grew up down near the border over in Hudson. And I say this a lot with a lot of pride. I'm a first-generation American.
Okay, so where are your parents from?
Yeah, Mexico and Spain. So, you know, like any good Latino family, that you go either to California, Texas, or Florida to start off. They started off in Florida. So I was born there, and then we moved up here when I was like 3 or 4 years old. Grew up in Hudson, just, you know, a classic kind of middle-class lifestyle. And we should talk about that because I think that's getting squeezed a lot more in America right now.
I want to ask you about this first.
Yes.
So you said, and the reason why I'm interested, that you said Spain.
Yes.
So, because you're from, my name is not easy to understand.
There's a lot of R's between you and me. There's 4 R's.
So when I see 2 R's,
yeah.
I think of the Basque region.
It's exactly Basque.
Right.
So it is Basque.
The Basque region is Spain and France.
Yes,
so you're from
correct.
the Spain side.
From the family's from the Spain side.
My
correct.
family's from the French side of
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, look, my grandmother was present in Spain in Guernica when it was bombed by the Nazis.
Wow.
All right, so the heritage on both my dad's side and my mom's side actually converges best. My dad's from Mexico, Mexico City. But yeah, look, they come to the United States. They settle in Miami. I'm born there. And then, you know, they decided, hey, you know, like any good Latino family, we're going to move up to New Hampshire. So we tripled the population in the late
Latinos?
80s of the Latino population here. But look, you know, growing up,
But you live in Moultonboro now.
I live in Moultonboro now.
And how did you end up there?
Yeah, so after I was at the Pentagon, so I was in the Pentagon in the last administration.
Go start with
yeah,
your history.
you're having me jump here.
Yeah.
You know, grew up public school kid, took my first job bagging groceries for Market Basket a quarter of a century ago now. Went to college, became a lawyer, practiced international law and human rights, joined the Army, became an Army officer. I still serve here in the Guard. I'm like the public defender for our soldiers, proud of that service. And I was an appointee of President Biden in the last administration in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. So I was a senior appointee advising the Secretary and other senior leaders on when are we going to use force consistent with law? How do we close Guantanamo? We tried to, didn't work out unfortunately. And how do we deal with a bunch of other operational matters? That's kind of what you think the Pentagon does day to day. And after that, my wife and I, she has her own small business, we had 2 criteria on where we wanted to move. We wanted to be near mountains and water.
Wow.
And Moultonboro seemed like a good fit for us, and I love being up here.
So what do you do now?
Now I'm running for office.
No, I mean,
yeah.
like a day job.
Well, I don't have a day job now. I just am running for office full time. But after the administration, I took a job running human rights, anti-discrimination, and privacy at Airbnb.
Airbnb?
Yes.
Huh. So you must get a lot of, once you say Airbnb, people say, oh, short-term rentals.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think it's fair. There's a discussion we need to have in this country about housing and how it works. We don't have enough housing. That's the biggest part of the problem. The supply and demand equation is completely off. I think government has failed to actually invest in making sure that the regulatory structure and that the investment we need to build more housing and making it affordable for everyone in this country just hasn't happened. I've laid out a vision for how to do that. It's on my website. I have a thing called the Fair Shake for All agenda. And I lay out exactly how, and I'm happy to go into depth on it, but how we would build enough housing in this country to lower that price and also help get people's foot in the door. So one thing I talk about, and I say right now we need to help people make down payments on homes, basic. And people say, oh, we shouldn't have down payment assistance. Well, we do right now. It's called People's Parents. 50% of new first-time home buyers get down payment assistance from their parents. People are getting crowded out of that market right now because it is so expensive for people to buy a home, to actually create and put their foot in the door.
And the government gets involved how?
So the government, a few things. One is we need a national infrastructure bank in this country. Housing should be part of that, but it has to invest in infrastructure that is crumbling across this country. We don't really have a true infrastructure vision. 2, actually help fund local builders to build starter homes. So when I was born in the 80s, 30% of new builds were starter homes, loosely defined as 1,200 square feet or less. What do you think the number is right now of new builds?
Small.
6 to 7%.
Right.
Big part of the story. And part of it is the regulatory structure costs a lot. 30 to 40% of the cost of building a home are regulatory in nature right now. So if you're a builder, you need to make some money off the home you build naturally. You're not going to build a starter home. But if you're in your 20s or your 30s or even your 40s and trying to start a life for yourself, you need that starter home to get your foot in the door, build some equity. Government can play a sensible role in helping to facilitate those local builders to build more of these homes. Part of the story, though, it's about local government and state government, too. Federal government should be creating incentives to reduce regulatory burdens and also sensible zoning. There's some towns and municipalities here that have 2-acre lot minimums. You can only divide up a town so many ways if you do that.
I mean, the discussion with that when you get to the state level is that local control versus state control. And the state's doing some things, ADUs, and they want to, you know, if you have septic, the state is going to say, hey, you can have a certain density, a much higher density. I mean, how do you balance the local control? And, you know, New England, New Hampshire towns.
Well, I think the towns get to decide what they want, but there should be incentives from the federal government to allow for more density, to allow, instead of maybe just duplexes, you allow triplexes or quadplexes, to allow for smaller lot sizes and more streamlined zoning process. But ultimately, local government should be the one that's in control. But the federal government can certainly play a role in helping to incentivize more building.
Okay. Totally off subject.
Yes.
So if you're in the Pentagon, right? I mean, you're working there in the government. So what do you think about what's going on with AI in the government? You know, and this Anthropic thing that's going on with the battle right now. And what's amazing to me is that, you know, like when we took out the Ayatollah in Iran, AI put together billions of little pieces of information, like from cameras on traffic lights, to find them. So is it not, and I don't know if you're an IT guy.
Well, I've talked about the Anthropic AI thing. So
okay, so not to get in the weeds about that, but it seems like for 20 years, I mean, it's a military application and then the commercial application, or civilian. For 20 years, we all have been putting our information into social media. Now, all of a sudden, AI can take all that social media. So somebody, I mean, some government, any government, at some point is going to be able to say, oh, I can find Christian, blah, 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 blah. And target them, one way or the other.
And this is what, you know, this debate between Anthropic and the Department of Defense largely centers on two things. One, can this software, their AI applications, be used to surveil Americans? Anthropic wants to make it clear that the Pentagon won't do that. And two, can it be used to autonomously target
without
without a human in the loop?
So where do you stand on that?
I think I'm with Anthropic on this one. I think there's a lot of problems with AI, right? Like, I'm not a champion of AI companies, but I am very worried about having AI systems that can be used against the American citizens, against our own people, in some ways to surveil them, and the idea that we don't have human intervention in the loop. And right now we've seen, look, wars, regardless of what you think about the war of Iran, I'm opposed to it, but regardless of what one thinks about it, wars kill a lot of people, and sometimes those are civilians. We've seen it right now with the Iranian strike on that school that happened. It killed about 150 kids, okay? Human beings should be in the loop to verify, is this a target that we actually want to go over? Does the intelligence look good? Does it make sense? Look, I've used AI a lot. It gets some stuff kind of wrong, all right? It's not, it's not foolproof. We need humans in the loop. And I think the idea of having lethal autonomous weapons, it can be really dangerous. I don't think we're there yet. I think Anthropic is being very sensible. I think this administration is being very unreasonable in their approach. They're treating Anthropic almost as if it was an enemy of the state. I think that's incredibly misguided approach.
I mean, what's a little, and I realize we're on a digression here, but what's a little interesting about the Anthropic thing, and they have their platform is called Claude. And is that usually it's the opposite. Usually it's the developers, the AI, the Googles, they want total unrestricted. And the government's always about regulation. And this time it's a little backwards. Like the government is saying, we don't worry about that regulation. And it's Anthropic who's saying, we need some controls.
Well, I think the people at Anthropic are seeing that, look, there's a lot of Americans like me that are skeptical of unrestrained use of AI. I think it's embedded in some of the questions you have. And they're saying, this is a real problem for us. I think the leadership at the Pentagon right now has got it completely wrong, but I think they want to have as much unrestrained power as possible. Look, I spent a significant amount of my career thinking about the laws of war, human rights, how they intersect, and how our military should conduct itself. And I'm deeply worried about not having humans in the loop in making targeting decisions and deciding who we attack and who we kill, frankly.
I mean, how does that, just one more question about that.
No, yeah.
I mean, where does it end up? Because one thing about the war, and you're against it, and you know, we could talk about that forever, but it's just showing our capacity. I mean, the United States technical capacity to do this, and then the rest of the world's going, holy smokes.
Yeah.
So here we are now in 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Skynet.
Yeah, look, we have, and look, I say this, I serve with those men and women, the best military force in the world, unquestionably. No question about it. We also have a responsibility to use it in a responsible manner. Is this fair to our men and women that are actually fighting our wars? Is it fair to the American people? Is it going to actually lead to more American prosperity? Is it consistent with our values and our human rights? And when I look at those and tick through that list, you know, I find it really hard to support the war as it stands right now. But what I want the military to be defending us from existential threats to the United States and to our core
What
allies.
are the threats?
To me, the threats are, frankly, the rise of China and Russia and other autocratic regimes that pose a significant threat to our allies and to the United States.
And why isn't it Iran? Is all the reasons what everybody's saying is that the nuclear program, which apparently got damaged last summer, but also the ballistic program and all that.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of other avenues rather than bombing Iran in the way we did. We were in the middle of negotiations with Iran, okay? We were in the middle of negotiations to constrain their nuclear weapons, or the ability to create a nuclear weapons stockpile. And we got to take a step back, though, right? You know, we see foreign policy decisions, normally they don't play out in days or weeks, they play out in decades. Back in 2017, this administration, Trump, canceled the JCPOA, the Iran deal. Do you know how much of an ability Iran had to develop nuclear weapons before that deal? Zero. And then it developed all of this now refined uranium, enriched uranium. So part of that story is the failures of this administration to actually exercise diplomatic tools. I think there is still a lot of other avenues we could have taken before finding ourselves having to use force. But another part of this story, Mark, the president should have gone to Congress. Congress should have had a voice in these operations. The majority of American people are against this war. I think the majority of Congress will be against this war when everything is said and done. And we should not have one person alone putting us into this type of conflict.
I mean, it's true that he didn't, certainly the president or anybody didn't message what was going on here, but certainly presidents have taken singular action a lot.
Yeah, and I disagree with that. And Democrats too.
Right.
All right, so look, I'll call balls and strikes.
So quickly, how do you think this is going to end, the Iran thing?
I don't know. I just want to be really frank. I don't know. I think sometimes there's bells that can't be unrung, right? And we were told during Iraq, this will be quick. We spent almost 10 years there. Afghanistan, 20 years there. I'm really worried. I'm also worried about the ripple effects of our actions. When you think about Iran, the reason why anti-American sentiment grew in Iran is because we got involved in 1953 and installed the Shah.
Right.
Right? We're paying this price now 70-something years later. Has it really advanced American interests? So I don't know how it ends. What I care about the most, I want the safety and security of our fighting men and women. I want them to be treated fairly and to have a fair shake and not to be put into another quagmire.
All right, so move on to other issues. A lot, I mean, you're very progressive.
Yeah.
Medicare for all, minimum wage, universal daycare. The obvious thing is all that stuff is expensive.
Sure.
How do you pay for it?
So let me lay it out. One, when you look at Medicare for all and you actually look at a universal healthcare system, as a whole, it would cost less than our current private. We have an incredibly expensive healthcare system as a whole in America right now. 17 to 19% of our GDP is spent on it. We spend twice per capita than any other country in the world, and our outcomes are worse right now. Okay? A Medicare for all system would actually reduce those costs. It would create more efficiencies. 20% of our healthcare costs are administrative in nature. You create consolidation. But a big part of the story too, Mark, is we haven't empowered Medicare to truly negotiate on drug prices. The cost of drugs in America, sometimes it's 2 times, 4 times, 6 times more expensive than it is in Europe or in Canada, because we don't allow Medicare to actually negotiate drug prices. And the healthcare companies are ultimately so fragmented that they don't have the bargaining power to go after pharma and say, no, you got to reduce the cost of whatever drug across the board. So you actually look at that, you create a lot more efficiency. by doing that. 2, when I look at universal childcare, we actually lose a lot of money in the state of New Hampshire because we don't have universal childcare, because people get squeezed out of the workforce. According to the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute, the state loses $150 million right now because of the gaps in how expensive our childcare system is. It's ultimately an investment in the future, 1. But 2, you actually start getting economic gains out of that. When I think of, you mentioned minimum wage, I say living wage. I think it should look different in New York City than it does in New Hampshire, different cost of living, ultimately. But people need to have a fair bargain. If you work full time, you shouldn't be in poverty. Right now, there are people that are working full time, hourly wage is so low that they're basically living in poverty, and we pay for that in other ways.
I mean, it's. I mean, you can make the case. I mean, it's true, and you can say, and I know, like the WalMarts, if they don't pay a whole lot, a lot of those people have food stamps. So we're directly subsidizing.
Yeah, and Walmart is telling them how to get that, right? They're giving them a low wage and telling them, oh, you can go to the government and get this benefit, and that benefit.
Right. So that all makes sense. But what about the small employer, mom and pop, who can't afford to pay $18 an hour and whatever?
So I think it has to be done in a sensible way. There has to be tax credits that also provided for small businesses. My wife has a small business. She lives with the notion of, okay, my margins are this is how much I can actually spend. The tariffs, when we look at Trump and what he's done, has raised the cost of her input, her goods, incredibly. I think that's the story of a lot of small businesses, frankly. So there has to be actually tax credits that go along with this, and this has to be done in a manner that is ultimately gradual over time. I think it should ultimately be a dynamic figure. Part of the problem of the story is that we haven't raised the minimum wage since 2009. The cost of living has gone up a lot since 2009. You know, I told you I was a bagger at Market Basket, first job, quarter century ago. Got paid $5.25 an hour. Minimum wage has gone up $2 since then. Think the cost of living has gone up just that amount? Definitely not.
I agree with you. It's just a tough. It's you know, there's always that balance. And the market, and you can look at it now and say, I'm obviously pushing back here, but the market works. I mean, people don't make $7 an hour. Nobody makes $7 an hour.
1% does, but you're right. Right, but a quarter of people that are hourly wages in New Hampshire right now make $15 or less an hour. Can't really live on that. You just can't. When you actually look at what do you need to support a family, you need to be closer to the 20s. But government has failed for so long to do this in a sensible, gradual way, allowing businesses to adapt over time, that we're stuck in this hole because Washington's failed. And this is a big part of the, you know, when I talk to people, I say, look, Washington has failed people time and time and time again. It's been more interested, in my opinion, on what is the, you know, kind of the hot button issue, the culture war issue of the day. It's been more interested in giving tax cuts to billionaires than actually helping people out in their day-to-day life.
Okay, so all those issues, fine, but how do you pay for it? I mean, the deficit, the Democrats are always famous for not caring about the deficit. The Republicans apparently don't care about the deficit. Nobody cares about the deficit.
They certainly didn't care about it when they give tax cuts to billionaires and then cut Medicaid, right? So one is actually, I think we need to tax the billionaires more. I'll just be frank with it. Just yesterday, I laid out a proposal to do that. I agree with Bernie Sanders' proposal to have a 5% tax on the wealth of billionaires. They have had incredible gains in America while everyone else is barely able to keep their head above water. This is the thing. The deck has become so stacked against so many Americans that we've kind of forgotten what it feels like to have a level playing field. A big part of that is actually taxation of billionaires. It's closing loopholes in our taxation system. It's stopping to giving out grants to corporations to just pad their margins. I think that's a big part of the story, but it's also how can we sensibly invest in things. All the things that I've laid out over time pay off benefits. We want people to be working rather than having to leave the workforce to take care of their kids. We don't want them to be forced into that. That leads to more economic growth. That leads to more taxable income. That leads to actually being able to fund these things. It's a much better system, and I think the way that the Republicans and the right have gone to cut back on all these services is proving to be very disastrous for average day Americans.
So you're elected, and what's the one committee you'd like to serve on?
Yeah, I think there's a few. Okay, so I'm getting, but I look, certainly foreign affairs and armed services makes sense. I think oversight, you know, I've talked a lot about corruption in Washington. I think it's endemic. I think the bar has been lowered so much that no longer are people talking about, is it corrupt or not, but is it corrupt in the open or is it corrupt secretly? I think we need people that are reformers to go to Washington to expose the corruption and to start cleaning up the way government works, because I think government stopped working for a lot of people in this country.
I mean, how does that, it's funny, I mean, not to say every candidate,
Yeah.
most candidates say a similar thing than what
Yeah.
you're just saying, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they get to Congress, it's like, they're different people.
Yeah. So there's a few fundamental differences with me. I'll tell you a few things. One, I don't take corporate PAC money. I'll never take corporate PAC money. I think it actually should be illegal. Two, I believe in term limits. I've actually said I'll term limit myself. That's a big change. Congress doesn't want to term limit themselves. I think it should be 6 to 8 years, 3 to 4 terms for a member of Congress. Senate, I think it probably should be 2, right? But I'll actually term limit myself. My promise to the voters: you're not going to have a multi-generational Urrutia hanging around. 3, I actually think we need to stop members of Congress from trading stocks, and I'll support that fully. 4, we need to stop members of Congress from being able to become lobbyists. You shouldn't be able to go to Washington, live off the public dime, learn how the system works, and then go serve corporations.
It is kind of crazy. I think Claiborne, just reading the headlines in Claiborne in South Carolina,
Yep.
like he's going for another term. It's he's 84.
Yeah.
18th,
I think that's,
18th term.
I think that's crazy. And this is the thing, right? Look, there's some issues and someone says, hey, Christian, that's a progressive position. This is the conservative position. Then there's this set of issues in America, especially the ones we're talking about right now. A lot of conservatives, a lot of liberals, a lot of independents are fully lockstep in alignment. They feel it in their bones that there's something really broken in Washington. And what I think we need are actual reformers. And I've built my whole campaign, I believe in actually doing things to get to the place you want to be, not say, oh, when I get there, I'll actually do things. My campaign, average donation to the campaign, $27, 23,000 donors. I don't take corporate PAC money. It is powered by folks that are just saying, I want something different. And look, I'm a realist. You probably never heard the Urrutia name before this campaign, and neither did any of my donors, frankly. It is the power of the message and to say, we can do fundamentally better and we can have something different.
Chris Pappas, who's the one you would
Yep.
want to succeed, he's like the nicest guy in the
Yeah.
world. And he always touts his bipartisanship, which
Yeah.
I don't think his voting record necessarily reflects that, but that's his thing.
Sure.
And he's excellent in constituent service.
Yep.
I mean, he is a good guy.
Yep, sure.
Politics
I
aside.
totally agree
but
with that.
you seem to be presenting, I think on your website, that you're going to be bold, we got to
Yep.
fight, blah, blah, blah. That
Yep.
is not a Pappas.
I think Pappas and I are fundamentally different in a lot of ways, okay? There's some policy differences. There's also some stylistic differences, too. I think America right now needs fighters. For them. I think a lot of America's being left behind. I think of my story, right? The idea that you can be the child of immigrants and go to be appointed by the President of the United States to serve in a position of great importance for our national security speaks to the American dream. And the reality is, I think that American dream is getting harder and harder and harder for the vast majority of Americans. And we need people in Congress with some real fight in them. So Chris, he's going to run his campaign. Well, he's running for Senate. He's got a different style than me, and that's okay. We need people with different styles too. But what I think America needs right now, more reformers, people that have fight and actually understand that there's outrage that are felt by the American people because they are getting left behind.
I'm sure you think this through, but actually your biggest fight is going to be through the primary. I mean, chances are the Democrat is going to win. I mean, we've elected Democratic federal delegation and it's probably with the off-year election and all the stuff that's going on. There's probably a good chance if you're betting that a Democrat is going to win the seat.
I think the quality of the Democratic field is much higher too.
Okay, so and partly it's because not to take anything away from the Republicans, but they aren't known either. There's no names in the Republican Party. Get DiLorenzo and Holly Novoletsky, who ran last time. But on your side, you've got Stephanie Shaheen and Maura Sullivan, people who are, I mean, obviously the Shaheens, and they're probably going to get a lot of establishment support. And Maura Sullivan's has a military background and has been at this for a couple terms. How do you break through?
Yeah, so one, I think it's the power of the message that we have. The reality is when people hear my message, they like it. 2, we are running a campaign. We're going to have the resources we need to get my name out there and to get people to understand, hey, Christian stands for something different. I'm not an establishment guy, all right? I think people are really sick of the establishment. I think they really want something different. And this is the thing with voters in New Hampshire. They're not easy. They're going to hold people's feet to the fire. They're going to actually ask, what are you actually going to do to fix the problems we have? And they're going to judge you. And they're actually going to do their homework. And I really believe in the New Hampshire voters. They're going to measure people based upon their merit, not who's got the fanciest last name. And this is a story, you look at Carol Schaap-Horter. She got outspent, what, 100 to 1? Okay? Chris Pappas got outspent last time by Maura Sullivan, 2 to 1. Victorious. The story of Bernie Sanders in 2016, beating Hillary Clinton. Pete Buttigieg.
Right.
Okay? His name, I don't know, is it harder to pronounce than my name? I don't know, right? New Hampshire gave him a shot, regardless of what you think of his politics, right? New Hampshire gave him a shot. He did really well in New Hampshire. New Hampshire voters care about the merit of the candidate. And when you look at my campaign, I have fully formed positions. I've got the most clearest, most ambitious plan on how do we fix our country. There's other candidates in this race that literally don't have an issues page. Go to Stephanie Shaheen's website. If you can find the issues page, send it over to me. I haven't seen it yet. I don't think the voters of New Hampshire are going to really appreciate that.
All right, Christian, we're out of time. You got anything else?
One, it's a pleasure to be here. I like your questions, and we're going to have to do this again.
Okay. Thanks for stopping by.
Really appreciate it.
Okay.